Well, welcome everyone to a special edition of Learn Analytics, where we talk about data, analytics, and everything around product management. And today we have how should I pronounce your name?
Jieying, yes,
Jieying.
yeah.
We have Jieying today, and she is currently the Chief Product Officer at Bellhop, and she has spent various senior roles in product management at Groupon, Sears, and Chowbus. And she also holds a Master's of Science in Management Science at Stanford University. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This is cool.
Great. Very excited to talk to you, learn more about your story, and also share with our viewers about your insight around product management. So
yeah, happy to.
Great. Let's dive into it. So the first question that I have is, in your journey of product management, how did you get into it? What's your story? Like, how did you get into it?
Yeah, it's really interesting that I started my career back when I was in China. That was 2005, 2006, right? At that time, product management, at least there wasn't such a term in China. Now looking back, I was already doing product work at that time because I was working in a research lab sponsored by Intel. I was also working for GE as an information management leadership program associate. So I was running projects, etc. And I was all the way from defining the requirements to doing the design to implementation myself to QA to everything, right? But I didn't call it product management because nobody called it product management. My official first product management job was actually at Sears. And that was time when I just graduated from Stanford from my second master's degree. And then Sears was interesting in one, it's a very old company, right? So it's a 100-year-old company. And then it was trying to reinvent itself by really focusing on technology. And it didn't want to invest in the stores. It didn't want to invest in marketing so much, but it just wanted to invest in technology and see how much return we can get out of technology. So it created this program it called Technology Leadership Program. When they went to Stanford, they went to MIT and CMU, they only wanted specific people who had some work experience and had educational background from these universities with a combined degree between business and technology, but didn't have retail experience. So they're like, let's just have these people come in, take a fresh look. So I joined as part of that first batch of the program. It was completely open-ended. There's no direction whatsoever. So I spent the first year really trying to find what I do. And I did end up actually doing something with a great result in dynamic pricing. But then there was a product manager job opened up in marketplace. So the Sears online marketplace really was a replica of the Amazon online marketplace. But you can imagine Amazon online marketplace was led by a few VPs, whereas Sears, it was just one opening for a PM for the online marketplace in its infancy. So at that time, I was like, that was such a big opportunity. And I really want to jump at it. So that's when I jumped into being an official product manager. And I stayed on that role for 3.5 years before joining Groupon.
Got it. Well, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like you were wearing a lot of hats and doing product management before even the term was really
right
out there. Yeah. And then, so let's continue that story. So after Sears, right, you worked there for a lot of dynamic pricing type of stuff. So what made you, where did you land next, and what was your next role like?
Yeah, so at Sears, I had a luxury of working with amazing people, beautiful products, because like I mentioned earlier, I was a one-person team for a while to build this huge online marketplace, which included the something very similar to Amazon's Seller Central, right? So the portal for supply management overall for all the vendors and sellers to come in and then provide their inventory, get orders and everything. And then I also own the consumer experience and logistics for online marketplace as well. So that really built really good foundation for my career, because it's actually really rare to have one product management role covering all these fronts. So looking back, that was really the acceleration period of my career as I started. And then later in my career in Sears, I also started managing people on and off. So there's some interns, there's some new technology leadership program associates I was managing, but not systematically. So when I joined Groupon, that was when I really started diving into being a manager of product management as well. So the reason I joined Groupon was Groupon at that time, it was still relatively newcomer in, although it already went public, right? So, but it kept saying that in its heart, it's really more of a startup spirit. And then in that startup spirit, they started Goods division. So Goods was started as the e-commerce portion of Groupon and was running as its own business unit. And at that time, it's still in its infancy, but somehow it just clicked with consumers. So there's already consumer recognition and then revenue flowing before they hired anyone with real e-commerce experience on the team. So I was pretty much among the first batch of people that they hired with real e-commerce experience. So that was a perfect match. And I joined, really started doing some IC work on the supply platform, but then they had a complete turnover of product managers on supply platform. So then I became the head of product of the supply platform and started recruiting people, growing the team, etc. And then later on, I further grew to be really the head of product for Goods overall. So like I mentioned, we were running as if it's own business unit, right? So it's a verticalized team. We had our own product team, engineering team, operations team, marketing team, data, everyone. So it's my sort of pseudo practice of running the product division, the entire product function. And then after that, I started getting to a startup world where I became really the chief product officer. So that's when not pseudo, I'm indeed running the product department end to end.
That's awesome. Like you said, I really like how you phrased it, your experience with, you wore a lot of hats and really accelerated and, the deep knowledge, right? And the deep experience that you got at Sears and then also at Groupon wearing multiple hats, right? And sharing with the viewers that even in a bigger organization, there can still be a lot of like innovation and startup culture or entrepreneurship, right? That can happen.
Yeah, that's very true because I intentionally at that time of my career I was choosing these jobs where it's got the infrastructure support of a large company, but also I felt like I was running a startup within the company, and that idea actually stemmed from when I was at Stanford because what I learned from Stanford, the curriculum was awesome, right? But then more so, Stanford really opened up my eyes in terms of what is entrepreneurship. Because before that, I felt like entrepreneurship was pretty far away from me unless I started my own company. But at Stanford, really going to all kinds of entrepreneur leadership forums, going even into all of the information session that all kinds of startup companies ran at Stanford because they always try to put on the best show at Stanford. So going there, you just learn a lot. And then part of the learning was entrepreneurship was not far away. So, and you don't have to start a company to be an entrepreneur. If you can just take control of your life, you can make things happen. You are not really bounded by the fixed expectation or the legacy way of doing things. That means you are an entrepreneur. So that's what I just continue to seek out throughout my career of these opportunities until I actually jumped into a real startup.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's really awesome. It's cool. Okay, let's take a step back, right? I think you have a lot of insights around product management and really building a good product, right? I guess like maybe that's really the crux of my question. Like when you're looking at, you've been in these projects, you've been leading teams, you've been managing people, right? I think like from your experience, like how like when have you seen projects not work out or products that haven't worked out versus other times where you really seen great products come to life,
I think a great product really, well, first of all, just take a step back. It's interesting, when I first got into official, like calling myself product manager, I was asking people what product management was, right? So then there is an answer that really stuck with me is that person said, well, product management is nothing but applying common sense. So, and if you think about it, it's also very true because ultimately, yes, it is a lot of just follow the real logic, follow the common sense. And then if you think about the high profile definition, then it becomes you are the CEO of the product, like you are in charge of the result of the product, right? So it does, I would say, start with you do want to have a strong product manager on the product, right? And then the product manager, and also it should apply to the whole product team per se. And when I say product team, not really the group of product manager, but really everyone who work on the product, including designers, engineers, etc. So, but you want everyone to have a shared understanding of the user, a shared understanding of the business, shared understanding with technology, starting with the product manager having a deep understanding, but also really share that context with the group together. And then also, I would say that half of the success of a product comes from really defining the problem. That is indeed, that's half the success. And then an example is I've seen people come to me saying that, oh, can you just break this page into 2 pages? I think, what does that mean? But that person may say, I've seen this other companies doing this. Looks like they're awesome. They are number one in the industry. Like, can we do that? But then you have to ask the question and then work out together with the partners in terms of what is the problem that we're trying to solve, right? Is it really there's information, overwhelming information on that page? What's going on? Is it like users are not adopting, they're just abandoning the page? What is the problem? And then once you go into that, that's still superficial. Then you ask why again. So you get deep into what the gist of the problem actually is. What is actually the root cause of the problem? And then you develop a solution on top of that. So not jumping into a solution, but really define the problem. Take your time, define the problem. That's really part of a success story. And then the other thing is just we have to recognize that I don't remember ever seeing an MVP, just the first release of product being perfect, right? So you have to have the mindset that the product needs to keep evolving. You need to keep the discovery even after product is released and then keep iterating on a product. So that's really where also you're going to see it really improve. But also when you're iterating, you have to take a very much measured approach. You need to really see how things are and then measure and then improve and then retro again and then change again, right? So eventually then you'll get into a good product, which is, again, not really set in stone, but it's evolving over time.
Some of my thoughts that resonated when you were sharing that was like defining the problem, right?
Right.
Before you build something, you first figure out what's the problem and what are you trying to build? Like, what is the the hurdle that the user or customer has, right? I think
yeah, exactly.
That's like so true. And the other thing that like that I think I've personally ran into a lot of experiences where you start thinking about the solution before you even really understand the scope of the problem, right? Like you create something, and back to the other thought that I had there was like an MVP, right? And continue to go after, to discover and keep iterating on the product to make it better, to really hear back from the user or the customer. It's a continual process. I really, really like that.
And it's interesting that a lot of times, and I gave feedback that way as well, a lot of times smart people really tend to run really fast. So you can see, and that was a feedback I received in my when I was in my early 20s, right? So I was listening to something, I was in a meeting, and then my manager at the time, after the meeting, told me, it's like, Jane, I see your eyes rolling in the meeting. I knew you were already not listening to the problem, but you were thinking about solutions already, right? So yes, your mind jumps really quickly, but this is not the occasion. Like, you have to slow it down to move faster eventually. So that's a really good piece of advice I got. But I also keep giving this advice to young product managers because they're smart. They tend to jump really fast, but you have to force yourself to take a step back.
Great. Okay, cool. Different question I have, like along your, pretty extensive experience journey, right? What are what are some of your sort of like the biggest learnings you've had in your career thus far?
Yeah. From the just career perspective, right? So one of the things is going back to my Sears experience. So the technology leadership program that we had, there is an opportunity to capitalize on it, that because it was not defined. The first year it was paid by Eddie Lampert, the chairman of the company. So most people graduating from that program, they then become a director. They seek out any place where there is a director opening, and then they jump in there, right? So what I really enjoyed is when I saw there was a product manager opening for marketplace, I just jumped into it. I don't care about title because I felt like the opportunity is so big. And then after 2 months, they're like, you're doing a great job. Let me just re-level you to be the senior product manager. So that's what really happened. But I think one part of learning is don't stress over title so much in the early part of your career. Really find the right opportunity for yourself. And then, as I mentioned, that opportunity really was such a great foundation for my career in sense that I got enough depth into user experience. I got enough depth into really business metrics, right? I got enough depth into technology, logistics as well. So then much later in my career, when a head of product for goods opened up, there's no question. Obviously, I was going to be the right candidate because I had that breadth and the depth. Now, this being said, I would also say you want to play to your strengths. So as I look at my my index, right? So you have to think about where you get your joy. So I consider myself having sufficient depth into all of these areas, but where do I get my joy most? Ultimately, I get my joy from seeing the business results. So I know I'm actually more of a business-oriented product manager, even though I can't speak technical terms. I understand user experience and I focus on those as well. So you want to then seek out roles that play to your strengths, which is why I was continuously seeking out roles where it felt like I was leading a startup in a large company. And that really helped me to advancing my career. And then the third thing is just as you grow more and more senior in your level, you have to think about it's less and less about you. It's less and less about you winning an argument. It's more about the product wins, right? More about the result. Because looking back in my early days at Sears, I remember me being very excited telling my husband, is like, look, my PRD is so good that the engineering directors are circulating the PRD to the other product managers saying that, look at Jane's PRD, that's so good, please mimic that. So I was like, that means they really think I'm the best product manager ever. Hey, how cool is that, right? So then my husband's like, but you have that written all over your face that please tell me I'm the best product manager ever. So then if you have that, obviously people will do it and then they will say it that way, but how do you ever improve? How do you ever get constructive feedback? So especially a lot of young product managers are very competitive, which is a good thing. But ultimately, you're going to learn more and more as you gain more and more experience that it's not about you. It's about the product, right? So you want the team, you want the product to win ultimately. So that will be another learning as I look back from regarding my earlier career.
Got it. Yeah, and I think some of that I resonate as well. I think I tend to like you said, like you tend to younger you tend to run fast, and you want to even before, right? Like probably take a step back and really understand like what's the right play here, right? What's the right type of thing. And I think the other thing that probably will resonate with the viewers too is like, yeah, like it's hard to, it's easy to win alone because you control those variables, right? Like
Right.
you control a lot of variables, but it's hard to win as like a team or like everything. Like there's so many extra variables that you can't control, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's, like you said, that's sort of like the joy around that. So cool. Okay. Different question. Okay, this one more for some of our viewers, right? Who are probably maybe potentially an earlier in their career, in their journey around product and product management. What's your insight, or mentorship, or or thoughts, like how should they get started?
Yeah, I get a lot of these questions when people ask me, okay, I want to get into product management. Does that mean that I need to take specific courses? Does that mean that I need to look at specific industries, right? So in my mind, especially when I look at really more of entry level product managers, I I couldn't care less about the industry background. I really didn't care about the courses you have taken, even though I would generally recommend people to have general knowledge in accounting, finance, as well as in learn a programming language. So I tell this to everyone, but I think those are even more of a superficial. I look at really the quality of this individual, right? So you have to ask yourself, like, do I have the personality of a product manager? Is that a good fit? Because there are so many great career paths out there. You don't have to be a product manager, right? So in terms of the personality or the quality there, what I look at is, one is just curiosity, and it's tremendous curiosity, because like I mentioned earlier, you have to, one, want to really know why always, and then two is you have to keep improving the product, keep iterating on the product. So you have to keep learning the user behavior. You have to keep learning what's out there in the industry and different industries, right? So that curiosity is really important. And then the second thing, which is also a differentiator, is the critical thinking, right? Because as a product manager, there's always going to be a lot of information flying towards you. And then you have to have your own judgment in terms of what is important, what is critical. So not buying anyone's words. One of the habits I have for myself is just, I never drop names and say, you're doing this because someone says so, or because I said so, right? So people really need to form their own judgment. And then every argument needs to be grounded. And then the third thing is just be very result oriented. I think a lot of people would enjoy the process. A lot of true technologists actually enjoy the process so much, the process of building technology. Now, as a product manager, you can certainly enjoy the process as well, but ultimately you need to be very much result driven, result focused, right? So relentless focus on that. I think that's also important as a quality. And then the other quality would be, do you really see people? And I'm not even talking about some communication skills and making sure you're collaborating, because again, those are superficial. But underneath is, do you see people? Do you read people? Do you have real empathy for people, which applies to your users as well as apply for your partners, right? Because if you truly care about your partners and then know where they're coming from, then naturally you're going to communicate. I don't even have to tell you to communicate all the time, because you see people, you respect people, you actually know people. So it doesn't mean that you have to be super outgoing, keep patting people on the shoulder, but you have to have that receptive attitude towards people. So I would say these are the things that you want to first ask yourself, do you naturally align with those? If not naturally, but you still want to give it a try, then of course you can cultivate some of these when you're in your 20s and even 30s as well, right? But I think if you naturally come with these type of personalities, then it's going to be super helpful in your early career into product management.
Super insightful around that. Yeah, cool. Is there, I guess, when you now you lead a lot of product teams, right? And I'm sure you hire a lot of folks, right? Especially types of interviews and stuff like around that. I guess, like, do you seek out questions that answer some of these traits or these things that, like, are there common questions that you tend to like to ask, or it'd be awesome to share too.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions I really like asking is to give me example of something that you did that you failed, right? So the purpose of doing that is, one, to gauge that the feeling of, even in your earlier career, the reflection or the awareness that it is not about you. You don't have to win all the time. Like, you should be humble enough to admit sometimes things fail. sometimes you fail, right? And then, but more so what I'm looking for is if people in answering that question, give an example, they organically tell me that, hey, from this, I learned ABC, right? From this experience, I learned ABC, and I even applied this to a future project, or I course corrected this project. Then that's awesome. That tells me that this person is very curious. That person is continuously improving themselves, right? So that's great. But if it doesn't come organically, that's fine. Then I follow up with more questions, really asking for them, what did you learn from experience? And what did you apply? How did you apply that learning, right? So then if they draw a blank, that's not a good sign. But if they were able to still think about it a little bit and then come back with answers, that's still decent good. But I'm really looking for people who organically are reflecting all the time, are learning all the time, improving themselves, improving the products all the time.
Got it. So you're really looking for, folks who are sort of like introspect, right? through
right.
their experiences, right? Like
Yeah.
what they're good at, and also like what they learn out of,
Yeah. I think you have to be very much sensitive as a product manager towards really having that awareness of yourself, having that so much of awareness of others, of the room, of the sentiment, having that awareness regarding the users and regarding the business. So you have to be really like an open in your mindset, so that you're taking in the information all the time, but without overwhelming yourself.
Got it. Yeah, it really sounds like, working in product and product management, you really have to know a little bit of everything, almost like.
Right. But some of that do apply to other jobs as well. I think whatever job you are at, you want to make effective decisions. So a lot of them do apply.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this conversation. Yeah, do you have any other things on your mind that you want to share with our viewers?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit about, one is I keep getting people asking me, like, should I pursue an IC track or a manager track as a product manager? What I would say is, regardless of IC or manager track, right? So as you grow senior into the product ladder, then one thing that's most obvious is, as the more senior you go, the more there's no excuse. You have to be accountable of driving business results, not just product result. Like you have to drive that business, whether it's revenue, whether it's number of users, or whether it's profitability, right? So you have to be accountable for driving that, even if you're IC, of course, as a manager as well. And then the second thing is you want to be a player coach. So even if you want to grow into a manager, you want to be hands-on. Otherwise, you are basically holding the most dispensable job, right? So that is important. And then, but if you do want to go into the manager track, right? One, you want to see if you have true passion of growing people, but also more so you want to have sufficient depth in more than one domain, because you can only go so far as a leader if you are only experienced in, let's say, consumer experience, or if you're only experiencing logistics. You want to have not just exposure, depth in more than one domain if you want to go into a leader, versus if you continue with IC, you can be a principal PM of just pricing, right? So that's really something to think about, is do you appreciate and orient yourself towards more of a depth in multiple areas, or you're just interested in a very particular area?
That's great. Great insight here. Like, I think it goes back to like, what do you want to do with your career, right? Like, are you interested in going deep into one subject or one type of expertise, versus you're curious about, various different angles of a business, right? Or companies, right?
Right.
Which is yeah, either way, it's not right or wrong. It's whatever fits you.
Yeah.
Your interest. Cool. Great. Yeah. Do you have any other additional
Yeah, I'm happy to mention one thing, because if I feel like I've already perfectly solved a problem before, then it's not a difficult problem to solve, right? But interestingly, as I see how product as domain has been evolving, I think there's a couple of things that are still out there. I don't think there's a perfect solution to it. Is one, as we call product management, generally we say product management, but what we mean is very narrowly is digital product management, right? So I have been working a long time in the environment or in industries where there's a online experience. There's also transitioning into offline experience. Of course, it's product's job to make that transition seamless. But once people transition to offline, then my feeling is like we lose control. So for example, in food delivery, like how the driver exactly behaves and how nice the food is made, you don't have full control from a digital product perspective. And then in moving as well, right? So you don't exactly know how big a smile that person, the mover would have when they knock on the customer's door. You don't know how efficient and how much quality they will be able to deliver. So how do we actually have product not just digitize and standardize everything around the service before and after? How do we, in addition to that, have product also digitize and really set up the guardrails regarding the actual offline service delivery itself? That is still an open question. I feel like we are making progress in my last job and this job, but I don't feel like we have a perfect solution. But I think that's something that a product manager, I think in the future would need to really handle, is not just own the digital part of experience, but also own the offline experience and then be able to influence that with product.
No, I think that's a really good problem to really tackle. And then, like you said, it's a complex one and it's hard. And it's like you said, the offhand, non-digitalized, right? That's part of the product, right? Like you said, part of it is, delivering. You could track all these things, but at the end of the day, like we don't know, right? Like, are they getting there with a smile, or are they not, and things like you said. But that's also part of the experience that the customer will have, right? And we'll see.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think as our technology continues to get smarter and things like that. There's there could be ways you could track that, I guess. Like you could
right.
or do things, I think. But I think we're at that time where product managers, analytics, whenever, like folks who are making, thinking about that, they need to think about this as a problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting that I don't want to pretend to be an expert, but as we think about the metaverse, right? So there's even more of a blurring of the online, offline, what is real, what is not real. Everything becomes real, right? And then, so how do you really drive the evolution of experience using product, using technology, and then make it feel like it's really integral part of people's life? How do you do that? I think that's something that's going to be evolving over the next few years.
Yeah, I think that's, you just threw another toughie there. Like it'll be very interesting as people adopt now. There's virtual spaces and virtual reality and, like you said, metaverse, right? How do you maintain a good user experience there, right? How do you maintain a customer experience?
Right, but ultimately it's coming back to, you want to add real value to the users. Whether it's virtual world or real world. But that's however technology evolves, that's always the front and center that a product manager needs to keep in their mind.
Yeah. No, I think that's the best way to end our podcast today.
Yeah.
With that thought. So it's really good to talk with you and have you on our podcast. So thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, have a good one. Talk to you later.
Thank you.